All right, what's going on, everybody? Well, welcome back to part 2 of the shed build. So last time we left off, we had the foundation in place, and today we are actually going to build the first step of the actual shelf, which is the floor. So I went to Home Depot and I bought all of this. I'm actually keeping track of the cost of everything I'm spending to build this shed. The idea is that I will be able to at least transfer the knowledge of what it may cost if you want to build your own shed versus going out and buying one. Whether I can afford to buy another shed or buy a shed is beside the point for me, because I really do enjoy building stuff. So, but it may help to kind of help somebody that is, able to build a shed, but may not want to, and then you can kind of have a price comparison with that. This shed is going to be a 9 by 10 shed. Most of that dimension was dictated for me based off of the space that I had. My preference would have been to have something like a 12 by 12 or a 10 by 12, but without digging into the hill, there was no way I was going to get that done. So I'm left with what I have, and then I also didn't want to be in my neighbor's yard, nor do they want me to be in their yard. So that's the reason why we picked this size shed. So it's going to be a 9 by 10. The flooring is going to be all pressure treated. So that's what we're going to work on next. Also, I mentioned and showed this, the fact that we were starting a shed project. And I kind of threw out there that I didn't know what to call it. And somebody, I think the guy's handle on YouTube is Lawn Maverick. He came up with a great name. So we're going to call it the Shark Shed. That means that we get to build a shark shed. Next step in the process, really the first real step of the shed. So let's get started. If you look right there, we've got exactly what we want. We've got just a little tiny bit of overhang right there. We'll make adjustments after everything's put together, and it's perfectly flush right there. So, exactly what I need. So the length of the stud that's going across on the floor is good. And then the only thing we'll have to do is these studs here, we'll have to cut it down to 9 feet. And then we're just gonna do 16 inches on center all the way across. It's the reason why I put this middle brace right here was in order to account for the fact that I am gonna run them 10 feet this way. So one of the big reasons why I did that was because one of my rants yesterday was that lumber prices are really expensive. And I wanna have as little bit of waste as possible. I cut off 3 inches on one side and a little sliver on the other one. And that's all I'm gonna have to cut for the majority of these studs. The only one that's gonna have a big piece cut off these end pieces here because they have to be down to 9. If I had gone with 8, then it wouldn't work, number one. And number two is if I went this way, I'd have tons of waste. Every one of the studs going this way would have been, a 1.5 feet cut off or a little bit over a foot, and that's just wasteful. So that's my logic. All of the cross members. Now I'm going to do the ends, and we're going to cut that to exactly 9 feet. All right, so next step in the process is we're gonna mark off all of the stud locations, and all the stud locations are gonna be 16 inches on center. Now, if you've got a really fancy schmancy tape measure, and they're all fancy schmancy, just so we're clear, they will mark on all the red lines here, will show you where the 16-inch mark is. But we want to do everything on center. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark off where the first stud is going to be. which is at 1.5 inches. So even though it's a 2x4, which says that it's a 2 inches by 4 inches, it's actually like a 1.5 by 3.5. So 1.5 right here. This is gonna be our first stud, is gonna go right here. But then, since we're gonna go on center, we need to mark off at 1/4 is right here, and then we're gonna set our tape measure right there on the 3/4. I'm sorry, on 3/4, and then from here we're going to set each one of these marks right here, the red marks, which is every 16 inches. We're going to set the tick mark right here for it to be in the middle, and then we're going to go 3/4 inch on either side, and that's exactly right here is where your stud mark is going to be. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to take my framing square and I'm actually going to mark it through both studs so that I know exactly where each one of them are, and they match from the front, or actually in this case it's gonna be from the left to the right side. Make sure that everything is nice and even, and then we'll just go right on down the line and mark each one of these. All right, so now what we're gonna do, now that we marked each one of these, I've literally got an X right here. I'm gonna put my framing square down and we're gonna mark the stud location right there, all right? And we know this is up, so we're gonna mark an X there. And then we're just gonna go right on down the line and we're gonna do the same thing. Make sure that both studs are marked. All right, as you can see, I've marked each one of these right here, right? So now when you get over here to the end, this is kind of a short span between here and there. It's less than a foot, but don't sit there and try and expand it from this mark all the way to the end. That's just not gonna work. Now what I would do is, because most of the weight on this thing is gonna be in the front, I would make sure that this piece, since it's nice and tight, that's like right by your entrance. So I would make this the front of my shed so that I make sure that, you know, all the weight is like really sturdy when it's constantly going in that space. And the one thing I didn't do is I haven't crowned the studs in the middle, so we're gonna do that now. All right, there is one thing that I forgot to do. That is, I am going to put some holes on the corners of these boards right here that are on the end, and go ahead and pre-drill it, because once we have all this attached, I want to secure it. I'm going to square it. I'm going to secure it onto the foundation. And then the one more thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of an indentation there, because the head has just a little bit of a space, and I don't want that to be something that stays, that makes the floorboard stick up a little bit. So I'm just gonna have it counterset in there. So the screws I'm using are these. So I wanna make sure my bit is bigger than the head so that when it goes into the wood, it actually countersinks. All right, so we are all set. I've got my framing nailer. I'm actually using these 2 3/8 inch nails through my nailer. They are also rim shank. If you can see right there, there's actually like little rings all the way around it. And what that does is it helps it stay in place. So I mean, I could screw this together, but that's a lot more work. This will just shoot them right in, and they won't back out because of that rim shank. Today we are back at it, and we are now going to put down the flooring, which is going to be that. Now, because the price of this plywood is so expensive, which is 80 bucks a sheet, instead of trying to make like 4 solid pieces, I'm going to have to play a little bit of Tetris, and I can get the two of the pieces solid because it is a 10 by 9, but I'm gonna have to cut up the other one to make it fill into each space. Now, we'll be real careful with that, but we can get it done. So one of the things I wanted to mention on this, even now that we're done, right over here up against the fence, that's all the waste that we had from those 3 sheets of plywood. At 80 bucks a pop, my wife and I really were trying to be very careful to make sure we didn't have a lot of waste. And truthfully, I almost went to Home Depot and got another sheet because I didn't know how I was gonna make this work. But the truth is, I've got all the seams exactly where I need them, right? So there's a full sheet right here where I'm standing. Then there's a full sheet right there. Then there's a seam there, and there's a seam there. And then I was able to take half a piece there, half a piece there, and then a little chunk. So the seams are all exactly where they would need to be anyway. I've got stagger joints, so it's like a brick pattern, which makes everything really secure. And we basically did everything the right way. I mean, up in the front, I've got that extra short stud just because of the way that the studs lined up. And if you're just really, really patient and you play a little bit of Tetris, you can make things fit, and then you have very little waste. Again, that's all the waste that we had from 3 sheets of plywood. You know, I'm always pretty careful about it anyway, but especially now that prices are out of control, you got to do what you got to do. So just a thought, but we made it work. All right, folks, so that's it. That is the floor of the shed. We've got lots of nails in there, and I was able to do the little Tetris thing with it so that we have everything done with only 3 sheets of plywood. And because it's only a 10 by 9, I think we're gonna be really good. I mean, as you can see, Nancy and I did a little 2-step on it, and we're good to go. Hope you guys enjoy this video of the floor for our shed. Stay tuned for the next part, which is actually the wall framing and the sheathing on the side. So we will see you on the next one. Also, if you like this video, don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe if I've earned your subscription. And if you want to be notified of future videos, don't forget to hit that bell, and we will see you on the next one. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.